Yo, is that a fucking sponge? It's an angry sponge. Fuck! So anyone who's considered dabbling in the Mega Man franchise has probably heard or at least somewhat aware of the legacy Mega Man X1 on the Super Nintendo holds. It's often praised as being one of the best Mega Man X games, if not the best Mega Man game of all time. And for anyone thinking that I have a huge story based around Mega Man X2 like I did Mega Man X, I'm real sorry to disappoint. You know what my only memories with Mega Man X2 were back in the day? I'd load up the ROM on the emulator and it would just black screen, that's it. Yeah, it actually wasn't around 2006 that I actually got to play Mega Man X2 for the first time, and, well, admittedly I was pretty disappointed with it. I thought it was neat seeing the Mega Man X sprites in another game, and especially seeing X-Dash without needing the leg parts, but I knew something was up as soon as I heard that guitar sample. Like, just listen to it. Compare that to Mega Man X's guitar samples. Right off the bat, I was a little bit skeptical, and trust me, it gets worse. So just shy of 1 year after the release of Mega Man X on the Super Nintendo, Capcom published Mega Man X2, a direct continuation with some minor changes to Mega Man X1. The game met with some pretty decent reviews, however many of the Mega Man X1 fanboys were pretty mixed on this one. Oh fuck, that includes me, doesn't it? And let me make a disclaimer here. Mega Man X2 is not a bad game. It's not a bad Mega Man X game. It's a great game. I'd happily still play it over a majority of the classic NES Mega Man games, and those games are great, but let me share with you why X2 doesn't exactly fit into the shoes of its predecessor. So it's been 6 months after the defeat of Sigma, and X has taken the role of the leader of the Maverick Hunters, following the death of Zero by the hands of Vile. The Maverick Hunters discover a factory which is manufacturing brand new Maverick mechanoloids and launch an all-out assault on the factory in an albeit short, but pretty cool cinematic that just drops you right into the action. I'd like to take a moment of silence for the green biker dude. Also, can you believe the cult following this guy has? Even the Mega Man social media page has posted memes about this guy. After X destroys the towering Berserk Mechanoloid, a trope that actually started in this game and will be present for basically every Mega Man X game to come, it's revealed that 3 new Mavericks, the X-Hunters, have their sights set on Mega Man X, probably because they're called X-Hunters, and after you've beaten 2 of the 8 new Mavericks, which I'll get to in a second, they'll challenge X to a one-on-one duel, and they'll reward you with a piece of Zero? Wait, but how? I saw him get obliterated in Mega Man X1. That motherfucker even disintegrated. How the hell did they get the rest of him? It's almost like he's been rebuilt. Also, can I just say, I love how in this cutscene how each character's dialogue has a different speed to it. I don't know, it's the little things. Nice touch. And, oh, the password theme from X1 is gone. Remember that piece? It's one of my favorite tracks from that game. Instead of being replaced with this. In a brand new system that'll be around for all but one more game, the X-Hunters will scatter themselves around in all 8 stages. They can be found behind these unique boss gates in every stage. If they're not there, then what, did you think that these would open? Yeah, kinda. But in between hunting for the X-Hunters and finding new power-ups, you'll be fighting the new 8 Mavericks this game throws at you. And, well, I'll admire the team's creativity. These bosses are a lot tougher than X1's bosses, I'll give them that. In X1, every boss was built with the dash in mind, basically meaning that you just had to start off with Chill Penguin, giving the game a much more defined meta. But with X2, you have the dash boots from the beginning of the game, meaning that your preferred boss order is a matter of preference and not so much necessity. But with new bosses comes new power-ups, and man did they really jump the gun on this one. They can be neat, but they're not exactly practical. Most, if not all, of the special weapons in Mega Man X2 are situational, ranging from turning enemies into platforms, Ice Beam style, giving you a second air dash, and I definitely see the appeal. It does open up doors for more elaborate secrets and puzzles, but it does come off as creating an ability based off of your level design instead of building your levels based off of your gameplay. Does that make sense? It's as if these special weapons were a second thought. Like, the game devs just scattered around these items and puzzles and designed the special weapons as a mean of solving the puzzle, but then rendering the special weapon completely useless outside of its single use. Even in the case of bosses, the arm upgrade you get makes these guys just piss easy. Arguably even easier than if I was using their weakness. Except you, Bubble Crab, you're a piece of shit. But I've got to get the devs this. The boss fights are pretty fun, even with their weaknesses. The boss fights feel a bit longer this time. Wheelgator and Crystal Snail come to mind, but that's often because they'll retreat into an invulnerable phase, just padding out the boss fight so it's longer than it needs to be. Or in the case of Crystal Snail, literally slowing down the fight. I'd argue that Storm Eagle did the exact same thing, but at least you could still hit him. Though the X-Hunter bosses are pretty cool actually. Violin's a bit hard to predict, Agile's a bit too easy to predict, and Surges is just... what? If you decide the X-Hunters aren't exactly worth your time, don't worry, you'll be fighting them in the fortress again regardless. Once all 8 bosses are defeated, the Hunter's Lab in the North Pole will be revealed, and X will take the fight to them directly. Admittedly, there's nothing really of note here. The stages are quick and challenging, bringing back mechanics and enemies from all the previous stages into sort of a hodgepodge, but it doesn't really do much new for the formula. Though, having the fortress bosses being the X-Hunters and not just random generic robot things is nice, and it makes it feel like you're tying up some loose ends. These fuckers gave you so much shit earlier in the game, and you're finally able to bring the fight to them, regardless of if you challenged them earlier or not. It's nice, and it brings a good conclusion to the X-Hunters. Oh, but wait, there's one last thing I want to bring up before wrapping up the fortress. Remember the Hadouken in X1? Well, this time, the game's super secret game-breaking Street Fighter move can be found in the 3rd fortress stage by taking this ladder. This area is quite tricky and requires more skill rather than cryptic bullshit, but with some good reflexes, you should be able to get it with a charged up speed burner. Shit. Fuck. Oh, god damn it. Well, once you get past it, just cling to the wall on your left, and after a while, you'll just fall into the wall, just like... ah, fuck right, you gotta have full health, too. And just like X1, Dr. Light will show up and grant you the Shoryuken from Street Fighter. Much like the Hadouken, you'll need full health to use it, but it executes just like its Street Fighter counterpart. Forward, down, forward, attack. But it's been... balanced. And I say balanced with big-ass quotation marks. You have to make almost direct contact with this thing to do damage, but unlike the Hadouken, which just deals a large amount of damage right on impact, the Shoryuken just deals quick, constant damage and just ignores invincibility frames. Meaning that if you come in from a bad angle, well fuck you, you're gonna get hit. Fuck, what's the point? How could I have avoided that? The Hadouken and the Shoryuken are meant as a reward for completing the game, and tools meant so that skilled players are able to easily breeze through the endgame and the fortress stages on repeat playthroughs. Why make it so specific? At least Agile at the end is floating right above you, giving you a perfect opportunity to land a Shoryuken on him. And, aw, that's cute. The boss rush is like the classic games. Not much else to talk about, it's a boss rush. Bitch. Alright, one last level to go and... the fuck? Haven't I already played this level? No, I swear that this is it is Magna Centipede's level! Why? Like, it's a cool stage. A really cool stage, but why reuse it? They only use like 1/3 of the level, but why couldn't you just make your own level? And we're in the North fucking Pole! Are you telling me that there are 2 functionally identical facilities in 2 separate continents? What the fuck am I doing? Once you reach the end, you'll find that the X-Hunters managed to rebuild Sigma and... Zero? Oh fuck, Zero's back and... Don't worry though. Dink him enough and eventually he'll conk back to his original self. Well, sorta. This fight here though, this fight between X and Zero is actually completely optional. Yeah, if you take the time to actually hunt down all of the X-Hunters and collect all of Zero's parts, Sigma will actually bring in a fake Zero just before the real Zero comes in to dispatch the imposter. It gives a nice little bit of practicality to the X-Hunter side quest, and I like that. I'd like to see more mechanics like this in the future, ones that encourage this drive of replayability. Also, real quick, can we talk about this dialogue real quick? Maybe so, but I still don't like you. With nothing else left in his path, X and Sigma stand off in their first rematch in 6 months. Jeez, was Inafune just trying to turn Sigma into whatever pop culture hero was popular at the time? First Luke Skywalker, then Wolverine? What's next, Captain America? Oh, but it doesn't stop there! After Wolverine's defeated, he breaks out his true, final form. The C4 chip! Or CX4 chip, as it's properly called. The C4 chip was actually an addition to the physical Super Nintendo cartridge that let it do really simple 3D polygons. Well, just wireframes actually. This chip was actually just used in Megaman X2 and X3 to my knowledge, and oh god does Capcom want you to know it. Ah, Jesus, let me out! Once Sigma's defeated, he'll go on and on about how Zero was the last of the Doctor's creations. What Doctor? I mean, clearly not Dr. Light, that's for sure. Could it be... Wait. In the Japanese localization of Megaman X2, the X-Hunter Surges says after defeating him, "Defeated by a memento of light yet again, such regret." Light, obviously referring to Dr. Light, but what other mementos of light could he be talking about? Also in the Japanese profile for Surges, it says that he resembles, quote, "a legendary mad scientist who terrorized the world," end quote. With that, the English version makes a lot more sense too, saying that his prophecy must be fulfilled. Is Surges Dr. Wily? Sigma says that he was the last of the Doctor's creations, and the X-Hunters had new pieces for Zero, brand new armor, and a new beam saber, almost like they had the original blueprints for him. Did Dr. Wily create Zero? Huh. Much like in X1, X, this time accompanied by Zero, gazes over the cliffside, wondering if Dr. Light's dream of Reploids and humans living together in harmony is just that, a dream. And all that leaves now is just the thrilling finale of the Mega Man X trilogy, except no it isn't, no it isn't, and no it isn't. Well, I'll tell you this much. For what Mega Man X2 lacks in gameplay and innovation, it makes up for in story. I absolutely love what they were trying to go for, and I think that they did a great job with the story as a whole. However, the gameplay is an entirely different beast on its own. Right off the bat, X-Veterans may notice that the art style is also changed a bit, and the environments are a tad bit more photorealistic. This is because Mega Man creator and childhood nostalgia capitalizer Kenji Inafune took a backseat with the art direction in this game, choosing to focus on plot and character design. And it becomes more and more obvious the harder you look at it. The art style this time around in some areas feels more akin to Castlevania 4 or some of the Squeenix games at the time. Square Enix. I'm sure that may appeal to some, and I'm not saying it looks bad, I think it looks great. But personally I preferred the more polished and sleeker design of X1. In terms of level though, they're your basic run-of-the-mill Mega Man levels. You've got your magma level, your ice level, well actually it's technically crystals, your high security factory level, your water level, your level where frogs fucking kill themselves, with the new types of levels being this recycling plant. Oh fuck, get it off! It's sort of land ship sort of thing, and a desert. The desert stage belonging to Overdrive Ostrich, which has, for the first time in the franchise, the first ride chaser sequence in the series. I guess X2 is a bit more important to the franchise than I initially thought. You will need the ride chaser to get the heart tank in this stage, or you can just do a suicide leap with a fully charged speed burner, giving you a second air dash. And oh goddammit, I died anyway. But speaking of the heart tanks, can we talk about the power-ups this time around? Jesus fuck, some of these locations are either too well hidden or not fucking hidden at all. Fuck Bubble Crab's fucking E-Tank. Like, bitch, I'm trying to get up there and your bullshit won't fucking let me! Fuck you, you little laser crustacean. To clarify, what you have to do is you have to charge up Bubble Crab's own weapon, yes, meaning that you have to revisit this stage after you beat it, much like Boomerang Kawanger, and use his arm upgrade to charge his bubble attack, which lets you float. And maybe, if you could time it right and... The fuck? Okay, well, never mind. I had the hardest time with that when I was a little kid. What the fuck? Maybe I just used to be bad at video games. Oh, but to get this E-Tank, you have to get the arm upgrade first, and fuck finding these armor capsules. You know how in X1, 3 of the 4 armor capsules were basically rewarded to you for just exploring? Well, this time it's like, no, you little shit, come back when you have enough badges to fucking train me! 3 of the 4 armor pieces require that you have a previously obtained item, 2 of them being the exact same weapon! To get the legs, you have to visit Overdrive Ostrich's stage, and near the end you have to use Wheelgator's weapon to break through these blocks. Okay, that's not too bad. But no, they had to go stuff the chest piece in the most fucking obscure spot in Morphmoth stage. This one little area, for no reason, is a hidden path only accessible with Wheelgator's weapon. First of all, why? There's no indicator for this part implying that this is even a hidden path. And second, why are you making us use the same special weapon twice to find 2 different armor pieces? The only way I can imagine you finding this normally is if you happen to be using the spin wheel in this one exact spot. But why fucking would you? The spin wheel fucking sucks and it's like it... Okay, I really shouldn't be giving X2 this hard of a time. These aren't really that big of a deal. At least the arm piece is a lot more clear with what you have to do. Just air dash over to it. Or just use the strike chain. And on top of that, it's actually pretty neat. It lets you store a second charge shot that completely ignores invincibility frames with bosses, letting you 1-2 combo them, and it feels fucking good. The helmet piece is the only piece that requires some exploration into the unknown, and fuck! It lets you scan for secret paths, so I guess that's how they expected you to get the chest piece, but you still have to use the spin wheel. But not only that, when you're using the scanner, you can't use any weapons, so you're just stuck with being able to walk or dash while the scanner's on screen. Why would you think to use it in these areas? I'm sorry, it's not that big of a deal. To X2's credit, it did sort of debut staples of the X series. From the intro stage mechanoids, the ride chasers, the Giga attack, it's all here. And yeah, I think that X2 doesn't quite compare to X1, not even close. But credit where credit's due. It introduced some pretty ballin' concepts. They just need a bit of refining before I could say that they work perfectly. This is the infancy of the franchise, and it only gets better from here. Until it has a bit of a midlife crisis, then we're kinda fucked. But there's always a chance for redemption. So, given that this is the second real review I've given on this channel, I think it's appropriate that we start numbering these games. If I had to rate Mega Man X2 on a scale from 1 to 10, I would personally give it a 7 out of 10. However, let me clarify. I'm not grading these like your teachers would back in high school. A 6 out of 10 is not bad. With this grading system, I'm gonna leave 5 as completely neutral, and then anything greater than 5 sways towards more enjoyable, whereas anything less than 5 is considered subpar. However, because I didn't quite give Mega Man X the same treatment, I would personally have to give Mega Man X a 9 out of 10. The only thing keeping it from being a 10 out of 10 is the issue that I brought up earlier, how with the bosses being all built around the one single weapon, there's really only one meta you can take with the game. X2 fixes that, however I'd argue that its missteps outweigh its innovation, and that's why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. A lot of great stuff was introduced here, it just needs a bit of fleshing out. But, given that Mega Man X is a huge franchise, I think that it's appropriate that we gauge these less by the numbers, and more by how they fit in with the rest of the franchise. This is how I'll be reviewing games that take place in a larger franchise. Even though it might not line up with the numbers I give them, I will be arranging them on a scale of how much I enjoyed them. Just because a game is bad doesn't mean I don't enjoy it, and vice versa. And so on here, my Mega Man Mega list, I personally gotta place Mega Man X2 behind Mega Man X. Kinda self-explanatory for now, but I can imagine this list being a bit controversial down the line. Are there any obscure or necessary Mega Man games you'd like to see me rate down the line? Let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, maybe like, share, and subscribe and all that good shit. And so yeah, with that said, I'll see you next time for my next Trav Guy reviews. Wow, that's terrible, I gotta work on that. Trav Guy does reviews. Trav Guy reviews. Trav Guy views. Wait, that doesn't sound right.